I think y'all didn't hear me at all. Huh. Wow. Let me retry that. But welcome everyone to the stream. Um, the it's a nice chill Thursday. Pretty late, at least where I am, but who cares, right? Um, a day before Reqiuem officially drops. Here's hoping I get the game either later today or tomorrow, so I can live stream that for y'all because that's gonna be fire. I'm praying I get the game. I only want the base game. I don't care for the deluxe edition all that much. Apologies for background noises. You know how it is, guys. Fam. But what's happening, gang? What's happening, everybody? How y'all doing tonight? It is where I am, 7:46 p.m. currently. Um, and as you can tell, I am playing the original um Resident Evil 2 that came out in the year the game takes place, 1998. This game not only would introduce one of the most popular, iconic characters of all time. Let's be real, the most beloved character in Resident Evil franchise, but will also be the game that would truly spark off the entire franchise for years to come. If Resident Evil 1 was the game that set the foundation, that ignited the spark, that opened people's eyes to the world of survival horror, the true manifestation of 3D game design, and of course, the Resident Evil franchise. Resident Evil 2, which released 2 years after Resident Evil 1 in 98, will be the game to truly go ablaze. Like, lit that fire into a blaze and like expand it outwards into different branches. That's pretty much how Resident Evil 2 was in conjunction, or at least in results or in significance rather, to the legacy of Resident Evil as an entire franchise. Yeah, Resident Evil 2 is a very beloved game, popular, still played by many Resident Evil fans like myself to this very day, and for good reason. I mean, for one, the game did a lot better than the original. It's one of the game that isn't really forgotten all that much. And on top of that, well, I mean, come on, guys. This is the thing that really set in motion everything. And to be fair, it did spawn one of the most beloved characters in the Resident Evil franchise in gaming, Leon Scott Kennedy himself, baby. Um, so yeah, there's a little gaming historical fact for y'all there. Um, yeah, we're just gonna chillax a little bit, just trying to get my bearings, make sure I ain't going mental, and yeah, that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, these retro games, when ported onto modern consoles, can like allow you to like rewind stuff and load and stuff like that. Like they have their own little mini save, which is much more modern. Pretty cool. What's good? What's good, son? How you doing? I also know who you are. Don't worry. I saw your message. What was happening in the stream? I also know someone else is in the stream. So what's good to you? Lofty. Hope you're doing good. Um, but yeah. Uh, all right. I think I'm ready to head out. Not head out. Wow, that makes zero sense. But get into the game. I will be actually doing a little bit different because I played this game multiple times, but this is my first time playing on the PS5 version, but I already played it multiple times before on the PS4 version of this game on the PS5. I'm just gonna do, you know, yeah, no, don't worry, I know who you are, yeah, but what's good? But because I already played this game multiple times, I'm gonna just do a range game, and this is gonna be like, I guess it's like some people might call it cheating. I call it manifestation. Yes. So this is also gonna be a semi-chill live stream as well. Obviously I'm playing Resident Evil 2 because again, right, this is like, the game that, again, popularized and really set off Resident Evil. And for Requiem, a returning character from Resident Evil 2 is coming back into the game. And on top of that, the dude is going back to the thing that started it all, the place that started it all. And so it just makes sense for us to play the game where it started for him. Now, again, this is not the remake, okay? The modern Resident Evil, every new entry of Resident Evil following from like Village and um Requiem afterwards, they all now adopt the modern reimagining slash remakes of the Resident Evil franchise's lore and plot points. So the original Resident Evil 2 story and lore are part of a different timeline branch of Resident Evil, and the remake ones are the now new canon to for better or worse. But this is the original, and this is the only one I got, and I don't feel like buying Resident Evil 2 remake, especially since I'm trying to make sure I have enough money for Resident Evil Requiem today or tomorrow. At least hope I do. I really want my dad to do it, so yeah.
It was later revealed that the terrible disaster had been caused by the T virus, a mutagenic toxin created by the international enterprise Umbrella Incorporated.
Correcto.
In bioweapon experiments.
Correcto.
The Raccoon City Police Department's
CC.
STARS unit immediately began investigation in the affair. The case was apparently closed, thanks to the efforts of STARS members Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. But the Umbrella Corporation's experiments are finished.
Now, I do want to mention, in terms of the lore, when it comes to the time and stuff like that, I did make a small error. The lore Resident Evil, at least from my knowledge, doesn't go all the way back to the 1600s. The reason why I thought of that is because of some of the documents you could find in Lady Demetrius' castle that I thought dated a little bit back towards those time periods because of the architect and just the overall vibe and feel. But I was probably just being an idiot, and most likely was being an idiot, so I apologize. Overall, no, the earliest date for the Resident Evil lore is as early as 1919. Yes, this is during the year the Spanish flu occurred and at the end of World War One. So, yeah. And that, pretty much a very crucial character, Mother Miranda, would go on to find the mold, which was a big giant bioterrorist looking, not bioterrorist because it wasn't real experimental, but it was like a natural weird looking organism, hive mind of sorts, that she found warming the cave. The reason why she was roaming was because the Spanish flu had hit her area, and unfortunately her newborn daughter was hit with this flu and shortly passed away. Driven by grief, she wandered around into the cave to where she found the mold. And that she found out that it has abilities to not only enhance the human, DNA, it shows giving it physical abilities, strength, all that jazz, on some freaking Devil May Cry shit, but could also clone and bring people back from the dead. So she would use this and try to gain test subjects around her village to experiment with the hive mind. Later down the line, in the 50s, let me pause because I don't want to talk too much over everything. Later down the line in the 50s, Oswald E. Spencer, yes, that's Spencer, if y'all know who I'm talking about, would go on his little expedition traveling around the world, yada, yada, yada. He would eventually find himself lost because this is 1950s, and, directions were iffy and based on your knowledge. And something happened to him, which caused him to get severely injured, and he was in a fatal, horrible position. Eventually, Mother Miranda had actually found him and took him back to her village, where as he was getting treated, he got introduced to the whole religious cult people were, worshiping known as the Black Lord or the Black God and all that jazz. And he was kind of like, what the frick is going on? Miranda would actually be the person who would tell him what was actually occurring, and she would lead Oswald to the cave where she found the hive mold, or the mold, which was like a hive. And there, she would explain to Oswald the whole perks and abilities and traits the hive mind, aka the mold, possessed. For her, this was her shot at reincarnating her daughter, her long-lost baby daughter. For Oswald, it was something more ambitious. We'll get to that later on. But just know, He will be one of the key figures that will return later on.
What was that? What are these things?
Zombies.
All right, that's far enough.
Yeah, guys.
Don't move.
Got a lot. I can't lie, bro. The CGI cutscenes, or at least the high budget anime cutscenes, were something to say the least. That's for sure. Ugh, why you juggling like that, gang?
What's up with that guy? That was a clean hit.
Yeah, this is clear.
Wait! Don't shoot!
Get down.
Bop. Yeah, so for anyone who has played the remake, you could tell there's a lot of similarities from the remake to the original, but it's definitely, there are some changes here, obviously.
There.
So around the 50s to the early 60s, Oswald E. Spencer, along with two other friends and co-workers of him, the names I kind of forget out. One of them was Edward, I can remember the last name though, and the other one was Marcus. I hope that was the right one. They would travel over to Africa on their little own expedition, mainly led by Oswald, of inspiration from what Miranda had, shown her back when he was in the village where Miranda was and with the hive. Forgot to mention too that before he left the village back to, his areas, the states and all that jazz, he did get some extra information and learned a lot more about Miranda, whatever Miranda taught him, is some of the experiments and some of the stuff regarding, this whole new world, you could say, of, I guess you could say, the future, the evolution. There, he did find a mural that definitely intriguingly inspired him, and I believe it was a symbol resembling 5 of some mythological creatures that were crucial to the whole religious idea and cult that was going on. Thing is, the symbol that was indicated would eventually not only struck Oswald, but be a heavy inspiration for be coming down in the future, which you guys have probably seen multiple times, and will be one of gaming's most iconic, freaking symbols in all of gaming.
Okay.
It's just that freaking popular. But it started with the village. It started there with Oswald E. Spencer.
I arrived in town, and the whole place went
Great.
insane.
The radio's out.
That much
You're
is
a
clear.
cop, right?
Yeah, first day on the job. Great, huh? Name's
Nah.
Leon Kennedy. Nice to meet you.
Mine's Claire Redfield. I came to find my brother Chris.
Definitely beloved characters, but let's be real, the more beloved the character is, Leon Scout kind of high. Alright.
Hey, could you open the glove box?
Sure. There's a gun inside.
Better take it with you.
I concur, gang.
You okay?
Still in one piece.
Maniac's gonna ram us!
How much is clear, gang?
Run!
Yeah, just similar to the remake. Or rather, the original remake was similar to the original
Claire!
in this regard.
Leon!
I'm okay. Head to the station. I'll meet you there.
Okay.
I gotta say, the quality here is so growthy. Alright, so this is also where it indicated to you, this is how they indicated you which character you're playing, is if the last scene of that cutscene was showing either Leon or Claire before it fades to black and show this text, that means you were either playing Leon or Claire. In this case, I'm playing Leon, because I'm in disc 1. Now, if you can see, I have, and that's because I'm on a different game mode called the Arranged Game Mode. And this is kind of, well, it kind of makes the game just kind of a little more easy. I don't really need to be on this mode. I'm only doing this just because I can. Hold on, give me a second. I gotta freaking open up my phone because the chat I'm reading off of is very minimal. Like it doesn't show the entire thing for some reason. Yeah, no, but I mean, to be fair, right, this came out in like what 90 on the PS1, so this was the best they could do to make a character look realistic at the time. Was it successful? Definitely not, but you know, think about it like people from the 90s. They didn't know better, obviously, because the technology was limited. So for them, you know, this is all they got. And also, if you guys haven't told yet, but if you pay attention to the environment, you could tell they're a little more pixelated than the actual characters. And that's for a reason. You see, this entire environment is not real. I mean, it's real, but it's not real in what I'm in like a gaming sense, if that makes any sense. I'll talk about that a little more, but just know this is not, it's technically not real.
Freeze! Who are you? What are you doing here?
Your mom.
Hold your fire! I'm a human!
Yeah, bro, I'm a gooner. Just like you, gang. Whoa, now, hold down the cock, dude.
Sorry about that. I thought you were one of them.
Fuck with
What's
Norfolk.
going on in this town?
Hold on. I don't have a clue. By the time I noticed something was wrong, the entire city was infested with zombies.
Playing a PS1 game in 2026 with how popular retro horror and the PS1 style graphics is so, I guess in a way, surreal.
But you should be safe inside here. I'm keeping a close eye on things.
Just wanted y'all to hear that dialogue. But it's also kind of like cool at the same time. I do think though that no matter what, even though retro horror games in the modern era had definitely been like hella popular games, they're definitely not like, they're still, at least to me, they don't hit the same all too much with actual retro horror. And I think it ultimately comes down to this. Now, fun fact is, if you stay in that shop a little longer and explore, you can actually see that guy get killed. I forgot what his name is, but he does appear in the remake. In the remake, you come across him, and he is his daughter is fortunately infected, and he's kind of just has a gun pointed at Leon's head, shock him, and then Ada's like, we need to terminate her, and Lee's like, what the hell are you talking about, blah, 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 and then he starts with the famous line, you know, cops are supposed to know everything, so what the hell happened, all that jazz, and that's where we get Leon's, you know, heroic speech about how, and the reason why he joined the force to help people like him. Yeah, that's the same guy. I forgot his name though, but that guy that just died right there, that's the same person. They did him a lot more justice in the remake than they do here. But again, you know, story wasn't like truly at the forefront of people's mind, especially when it came to Resident Evil. They were just kind of like, you know, doing this and doing that. Now, some of the games, wow, guns you pick up, even on a range game or range mode, do not have infinite ammo. Only the guns they give you and the ones they store in your item box will. Because, again, there are certain guns that they have that are meant to have infinite ammo and be broken, and others that are not. Because, again, it's a range mode. Now, technically, we need to go down there, because all there is down there is, like, freaking, what is it? Yeah, ammo. Pistol ammo. I don't have any pistols, so, just gonna air the pipe out, you feel me? Just, air the clip. And, on my way, gang. Can you, like, move, Leon? Move in there! Damn! Ah, yeah. Alright. Yeah, this is a basketball court. Now, I did mention earlier that this entire environment is not real. And technically it is. You wouldn't be wrong. What I mean by it's not real is that it's not real in the sense of how it would feel real in a gaming world, especially the 3D games. See, all this, the environment, the background, the detail, this is all 2D. That is right. This is all hand-drawn, perfectly artistically drawn by the developers, the art division in Capcom back in 98 and 97, where the hell they developed this game. Yeah, all this is not real. This is all 2D background, which means in reality we're walking on a black plane with some 3D polygons that are painted over to look like real environments in a believable real setting, but this is all not real. This is all 2D. So you might be wondering, well, how the heck would they even do this? What was this the point of this? I'll tell you the point. It's the 90s, and the 90s had trash technology. I mean, they had advanced technology for the time, sure, and even by today's standards. So what they were able to accomplish was very peak cinema. But again, gang, what I'm trying to say is it was good, but let's be real, it's not like today. The issue with technology at this time was the fact that because the PlayStation 1, while powerful at the time, was still kind of a, they couldn't, the memory and the storage and the RAM that was within the console could not process the 3D environments as well, especially since this is like during like a little bit earlier phases of PlayStation, so they couldn't handle the environments all that well, especially what they were going for with Resident Evil. Yeah, it was going to be too much for the RAM and the storage to handle. Plus, the engines they had back then were also not as powerful to really encapsulate, the hardware either. So they had two choices: either make the game horrible, or just scrap the project entirely, or do what Alone in the Dark did, which was create 2D backgrounds but 3D, 3D characters, models, and items that were really essential. And of course, they went with the latter option. And it was much more cheaper, much more quicker, efficient, and faster to do, because not only were they able to really, put the artistic vision to life and really bring out the artistic side of games, but this also allowed the game to actually fucking run and not commit arson on your house, guys. I know. Thank Capcom for that. Because they were really considerate of their own supply, the U.S. economy, the world's economy, and your local household. So whoever owned the PlayStation at the time, what the fuck? Whoever owned the PlayStation at the time would have committed arson on your house and would have been convicted for committing arson because their PlayStation couldn't handle a few polygons on the fucking background. And also, you would notice that every single door and like any sort of entrance that leads to a new section I go through always has this like long, winding animation. This is also another technological marvel that, while there to cover up a technical problem, actually help with the game. So the reason why they also have these long doorways is because despite them still using 2D backgrounds, that still took up some sort of storage and RAM processing because you had to port everything on. Additionally, because it did take up some styles and the PlayStation 1 was that's not as fast as loading things in, if you were to just go to the next room, you would probably either have your TV fucking explode in your house, the PlayStation would just commit arson, or just freeze and lag and load, or you just see everything pop in. And that would take away from the immersion. So in order for the PlayStation to properly process and load every single environment from every door or entrance you go through, they had those long, winding animations to play that not only give the PlayStation time to actually process and run the next environment, but still maintain the horror aspect Resident Evil was so known for at this time. Especially if you were a kid, or at least has some knowledge, or rather has some access to these games back in the day, or just in general. Yeah, it definitely helped out. There's no sign of life here. Also, yeah, you can interact with a lot of the environments, and the characters will say a lot, or the narrator will say a lot. It's pretty cool. I miss that side of Resident Evil. We need more of that nowadays. They do say it, but the modern twist just kind of takes away from the whole imagination of, what they might be saying, or how they might be saying it, Also think in general, like the classic era of like video games, especially horror games, really thrived on the low polygonness because it feed into that, like, when you first read a book, or just seeing art, right? Or like having just imagined. I kind of correlate the PS1 era of graphics and atmosphere in PlayStation to just like reading a book, because with books you don't really get the full picture of everything, no matter how can they describe it. You just kind of imagine everything on a silver platter. That term or phrase wasn't the best way to use, but you know what I mean. Like, you just imagine things as you're reading the words. Or like a comic book. Yeah, a comic book is much more visual in the sense that you can actually see what's fucking going on. But unlike a movie or TV show where you can like turn your brain off and watch it, even though no offense to movie TV shows, they're awesome and have different forms of art. With comic books, you still can't see the moving thing, so the white spaces allow you to fill in the gaps of what was going on between the panels. Similar to books, where you don't have any pictures, but you have words to describe what's going on, and you can kind of get an idea of the setting and the characters, what they look like, their emotions, and just overall, you know, your imagination of what's going on and everything about that. That's pretty cool. And so video games, in a sense, are kind of like that, mainly back in the day, because graphics were just so, you know, a technological marvel, and weren't so mainstream, or at least weren't realistic as they are today. Gang, you can, like, low-key imagine... Oh, yeah, there's also, like, a secret door entrance you can get. There's nothing special about this. You can just get a new secret door entrance. It's pretty cool. But, this ultimately led to, like, that same feeling you get when reading a book with old school video games, especially like PS1 games specifically, because the graphics were so pixelated and definitely polygonal and not, you know, modern, if that makes any sense. Therefore, you couldn't really get a whole idea of what was going on. You had the visuals, like a comic book, but you still need to have the imagination, what was truly, you know, going on in essence, like you're reading a book. And in a lot of ways, it definitely adds a lot to that imaginative state that a lot of us had, especially as kids, and for people, especially gamers who grew up around this time, especially kids, this was definitely right at home with them, especially since reading books at the time was not considered weird. So, or at least was rather, you know, popular, right? That was pretty cool. You also gotta, I know y'all already heard it, but the game has some interesting campy acting, that's for sure.
Oh, man. Who are you? Oh, you must be the new guy. Leon. Sorry, but it looks like your party has been canceled. What happened? About 2 months ago, there was this incident involving zombies in a mansion.
Now, we'll go on later to explain why Resident Evil 2 was also another popular success, but I'll go about that a little later on.
Chris and the other STARS members discovered that Umbrella was behind everything.
Ding, ding, ding.
They risked their lives to reveal the truth, but no one believed them. Not long after that, all this started to happen. Hang in there. Don't worry about me. Just rescue the survivors in the other rooms. Here, take this key card.
It's funny because this guy, because Marvin actually has like 2 different models in this game. It's kind of funny.
Now go. But
actually, he has 3 models. There's one with the gun, as you can tell, and it's actually, if you couldn't tell, the actual handle on the gun is actually 2D. It's kind of like plastered on his hand. The second model is him without the gun, and then the third model is, well, if y'all play the remake, you know what the third model is.
Fine.
And you know what happens to Marvin.
But I'm coming back for you. Just hold on.
Yeah. Also, the voice actor for original Leon Scott Kennedy in RE2, his name was Paul Haddad. Now, you might have known that I said was. And that's because the voice actor for this Leon unfortunately passed away 6 years ago. A year after the remake RE2 came out. And also, another sad thing, too, is that the live-action performer that performed Leon for the commercial Resident Evil 2 back in '98 also passed, too. Which is kind of, like, crazy, because there's been speculation that RE9 might be Leon's last game. I don't think so, because Leon is too much of a cash grab and a golden boy for Capcom to just kill off. And let's be real. 30-year franchise. Last time we saw Leon was in RE6 was like a long time ago. I don't think people want one of the most beloved favorite characters to come back, you know, literally getting bodied. Like, that's not what people would like to see. That's just a genuine, truthful fact. Now here, you can actually go 2 different ways. But the game, if you play on regular, normal difficulty, or like just on the original mode, the game kind of encourages you to go this way. Because in that room, well, I'll show you what's in that room, actually. But I'm going to go over here, not because it's part of the story, but because in the item box is going to help me a lot with how I'm going to, respond to enemies. I hope so. I hope so. Yes, sir. Alright. And we're going to put the ink ribbon in. Now, if you all don't know what ink ribbons are, and you're going to see based off of context clues from where they're placed, and if you don't know anything about Resident Evil, ink ribbons are an item that you're going to need a lot, especially when you're playing the OG Resident Evil games, or even on hardcore difficulties, like really hardcore difficulties that you have the use of ink ribbons in some of the remakes, like RE2 Remake. You're never going to need ink ribbons, because ink ribbons are crucial to your progress. So another thing too was memory cards, and memory cards were a thing. And yeah, you can save regularly with a lot of games through memory cards, but on top of that, Resident Evil was one of those games that was definitely hardcore, especially first time, because they use something called a typewriter. And yes, typewriters, if y'all know, were used to log information and progress, stuff like that. But they're used as like actual ways to save your game. Here's where the tricky part comes in. You can't save your game automatically. You need to collect the ink ribbons in order to use those said items to save the game. If you did not have enough ink ribbons and you saved at a certain part and you died, depending on how long or how early you was from your last save, you're going back all the way to that save. Yes, well, good luck, gang. They were really unforgiving with a lot of gamers. Game back in the day was pretty unforgiving for a lot of games back in the day, but that just added more to the tension and the dread. That's not where I need to be. And yeah, they amped up the action and gore a lot with RE2. And that's actually funny, because people like to fall, or at least, say that RE4 or even RE3, or even Code Veronica was the real time where the series fully went into action. And they're technically wrong, right? Those were the series that definitely pioneered those genres, especially for RE, mainly for RE, rather, not like the entire genre. But it actually started all the way back in RE2, because you look at RE, the opening scene, it's definitely a little more action focused and everything. You look at the whole combat scenario, the amount of zombies that are just on your ass cheeks immediately, action. And heck, the beginning part of the game y'all just saw earlier was full on action spectacle. So the actual truth is, action's been in the game, technically speaking, action's been in Resident Evil since the first game, but obviously it's much more subdued and much more strategic. In Resident Evil 2, it is much more apparent and upfront. And when you know who directed the original Resident Evil 2, it makes a lot of sense why it became a heck of a lot action-packed. But this is also one of the reasons to why Resident Evil 2 was also way more bigger success than Resident Evil 1 was, and what really kick-started off the series for years to come. It was pretty much the upping of the ante from the first game, and the whole focus on action, or at least a little more focus on action did to the game than, the first one did. The first Resident Evil game thrived a lot on suspense, terror, and horror, to the point where it was like a psychological kind of warfare in some aspects, genuinely. But it worked in the game's favor, especially for the time. And even in today's modern standard, it, for most part, definitely works still. While Resident Evil still maintains a horror aspect of some of that, suspense, it mostly thrives on the horror and the more action pace of the game, which a lot of fans definitely enjoyed when the game initially came out, and to this very day still do. For my bad, sorry, pause. And I apologize if you hear extra noise. Family members, your brother just came in. But yeah, that's definitely one of the major things about Resident Evil 2 that definitely stood apart from the prequel. The game was developed with the idea that people either knew about the first game or had some, hands-on experience with the first game. So, bringing in slow, methodical, the grandeur, the opening, the introduction would just be monotonous and almost like a repetition really fast, especially for the time. So they made the smart call to focus much more on the action, because everyone knows what Freak Zombie is, especially at that time. Everybody knows dang well that game. We already played the game. We at least have some knowledge of the game, so we are not, stupid. And even then, even if you had to play the game, the intro of the freaking second game, which is obviously this game, right, already tells you pretty much what you need to know in order for you to get into the game, anyways. So you kind of have an idea of what was current. So they don't thrust you into this slow build up of tension like they did with the first game, which made sense in the first game. What they do is, why does Liam look like that? Why does Liam look like that? He looks like Riley Freeman from Boondocks if he was like hella white, gang. I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes due to the PS1 graphics, they kind of like shifted and distorted the proportions of the characters just to give them like a idea that they're moving. Because they couldn't keep like a stable model, especially for the TV they're designed for and all that jazz. But it's whatever, it happens, right? But yeah, gang. Wait, let me see something. Oh yeah, there's like ammo in here, and there's a small key all the way back over there. I'm gonna leave it be. But yeah, what was it? Yeah. So y'all remember that small key? Yeah, let's go get that real quick. Anyways, what was I saying earlier? I don't even remember. I know I was saying something very important, and I locally forgot. Give me a second, guys. I'll be right back. Alright, I've returned. My bad, guys. But yeah, gang. What was I saying earlier? Yeah. Alright, so I had to look back through my live stream just to see a little bit. That's also why it took a little longer than usual. So apologies if I was a bit too long. My bad. But yeah, pretty much what it was yeah. So I was talking about like the freaking the atmosphere and the vibe in the game. So. Right, Resident Evil 2. Or 1 rather. Right, like I said. You knew what zombies was, all that jazz, yada yada yada. The build up made sense, yet it was still kinda like meh. And not like meh in the sense of, it was bad or like people didn't know about it. No, this is a lot of people's first time to actual horror in gaming and just in general, outside of scary movies that even then, the introduction to horror was just a very new concept, and that makes any sense. But oh shit, I didn't even know you could blow up people's arm like that. That's fire. But yeah, like the whole slow methodical vibe of the game in the original Resident Evil was just kind of like, it made sense for that game, but obviously doing it again for the second game just wouldn't make sense, especially for, again, majority of the fans. While a lot of them was new ones, a lot more in some regards, a lot of them are also old fans, you know what I mean? And they didn't want to have to, repeat the same thing. They already knew you knew of this. So instead, they kind of thrust you into the action. Even in like the first section, again, you're thrust immediately into the action. And for that, they kind of, nailed it. Number one, and number two, it definitely helped amp up the ante from the first game, showing that the true horror wasn't the suspense or the tension or the turning around the corner, it was not knowing what's to be expected. While it still maintains that even in the second game, a lot, even now, what really elevates it is the fact that, it's more or less loud, yet it's structured. It is almost a contained destruction, a contained horror that is screaming in your face, but it's not like Resident Evil 4 where the horror is actually in front of you. You need to make quick action-thinking decisions. You're still traversing this methodical, slow-paced, vibrant labyrinth, if that makes any sense, but with a much more louder presence than the original Resident Evil had. Which I think, for what they did and how they went about it, was pretty cool. Now, yes, of course, the game has aged, obviously. This came out in 98. A lot of ideas and a lot of shit is very old. So it's just the fixed camera, the tank controls, the acting, the whole god-awful acting, etc., etc. A lot of stuff have indeed changed in the gaming market, such as acting, such as story-driven games, etc., etc. That's a fact. However, the game is not only still fondly remembered of, but also still very, popularized. Now, the reason why I'm not picking up any of these journals or documents, even though I can, is because for this one, this is something the code I want to need for the safe back there that I got the map and the shotgun shells from, so I don't really need it. And the other documents, I could open them up, but I kind of feel like it. Plus, I'm not gonna lie, gang, like, we're just chilling, and I already know most of the lore around RE2. But, yeah. If you remember earlier, we did see, a red creature crawling on the freaking window outside. And, seems that crashed through such window. Or at least been crashed. Gracias noches. The head is missing. It seemed to have been twisted off. That's calm and observing. Yeah, walk around that, because that's glass shards, and that's, yeah, well, this is why. If y'all haven't seen the RE2 remake, or even don't know what these guys are, which are pretty popular villains, or rather, enemy types in Resident Evil. Welcome to the Lickers. Alright, we're just gonna... So, obviously I took him down easily. I have a fucking bazooka. But, unless you go on Rage Game Mode, you won't have that bazooka. So, what we're going to do is exploit his blind spots. If you saw, it had most of his skin is pretty much off, and all it really has is the brain and relies on hearing. And if you notice, it didn't immediately attack me, even though it was standing right in front of me. That's because, if y'all don't know about Lickers, they're freaking blind. Which means you can exploit this by using their weakness against them. Walk slowly and around them, but not too methodical. The issue with this, though, is that usually they spawn you right where there's glass shards. So even if you try to move even a smidge, you're gonna get caught. You're pretty much good. So you just gotta pray that either you can kind of cheese it, or you're not spawned on the glass, which most of the time, or all the time, is never gonna happen. But it is possible to move around it. They do crap ton of damage though, so do be careful. They're like the hunters, but not the hunters from RE1, which the hunters were incredibly, and I mean incredibly broken for no freaking reason, gang. I also like just how the environments give you like storytelling themselves. Like you could get a sense of like how life probably was before the outbreak. It is definitely where they not only had like a lot of chill times together here, but like, they also took a lot of lessons on like, well, how to, on like cases and like how to become a cop and stuff like that. You see all the trash and you just put it on the floor. You see the vending machines, like, bro, like the environmental storytelling, even for 98, is still really fresh. If y'all want to pause the stream or like, read this in your own time, definitely do so. I'm just kind of gonna skim through all this because I read it. But this is pretty much talking about like, the concerns of like the police department, mainly with the chief and like the frick he's doing or something like that. Oh no, my bad. It's not that, my bad. That's in a different document. This is talking about like someone documenting like the creatures that have been roaming the streets. Because the outbreak has been happening for a few days now, actually, since the 26th, 27th of September, during this time period, obviously. So it's been out for a bit, and these are just documents of a report that an officer was able to, dialogue and write down before he eventually unfortunately died, which I think would be the officer outside the room. That guy said to us, I believe, who knows. But yeah, he just kind of documents some of the bioweapons that are roaming the streets of Reqiuem City. So over here in this corner, you'll find pistol ammo. Gracias noches. You get up to 250 pistol ammo before you need to have a new slot. Save that for more extra piece of PC. Wow, pistol ammo. Here is gonna show now also inspect the environments, because they usually like give you hints of like what you might need to do in order to solve a puzzle, because the environments themselves, a lot of them will be puzzles that you need to like think outside the box a little bit for, or utilize the game's mechanics for. In this case, this is also a puzzle. It's a fireplace, and oil painting hangs above it. The title is A Sacrifice to the Hellfire. This is actually a picture of a naked woman getting tied up, BDSM style. I guess, bro, you have kinks. Anyways, what you're supposed to do as Leon Scott Kennedy, at least, is since Leon has a lighter, you can just you're supposed to like burn the fireplace, and it's gonna burn the painting, and that's gonna bring out a red gem. This gem will be important for, it's gonna be one of the key items we need to get, another key item that we need to get, that we need to use for a specific door to progress the game further. But before we can even get to that door, we need to get another key item that happens to have us backtrack to the beginning labyrinth part of the stage that allows us to unlock a door. And then before we can even get to the door, we need to get the same key item. There's two of those red gems, but we need to solve a puzzle for that. And after we do all that jazz, then we need to find another key item that will allow us to take a different puzzle that allows us to progress. Yeah, listen, there's a lot of backtracking and a lot of key items. What the fuck? A lot of backtracking and key items you need to grab during your playthrough of the OG Resident Evil game specifically, but yeah, Resident Evil in general. Wow, I can't see shit from here. Gracias noches. I love the gore and violence in this game. It's so much more amped up. It's just a point where I don't think a lot of people actually know how gory and violent this game can actually get. Excuse me. Especially this majority of the fan base probably haven't even touched this version or this mode of the game yet, so they have a very limited knowledge of how gory the game can be. They knew the game was gory based off the head explosions and all that jazz, but the true essence of it, they probably didn't even notice. Now, I could have actually done this my first playthrough, but I kind of just didn't feel like it. This is actually a door you can unlock, even on your first playthrough, but it will require you to take minimal damage in the first opening sections of the game. You need to take minimal damage, not pick up any items at all, not even a shotgun from the guy, but don't worry, you can find another shotgun in RPD very shortly on. And you kind of had to zoom past the zombies, take minimal damage as best as possible, and take up you got to pick up no environment, no nothing, no herbs, no ammo, no items, while make your way to the police station, Reqiuem City Police Department station. And once you reach there, then you would no longer see those two zombies that were outside in the courtyard area, or at least the entrance of the Reqiuem Police Department would not be there. That's how you know you did the secret correct. If you go down to this level, to the lower levels, which I didn't do, but there's a lower level you can go down, and while outside an RPD station, there you will find a classic character RE1, who is known as Brad Vickers. And Brad Vickers is zombified. And pretty much what you gotta do is shoot Brad Vickers until he dies. He does take a lot of damage, and he does take a while to shoot down. So if you need to go into the Raccoon City Police Department and like grab any weapons, stuff like that, you can. Don't worry. Once you reach the RPD station, not the glitch, but like the secret will still remain. You will still see Brad Vickers down there if you haven't killed him yet. But once you get enough, resources and ammo, stuff like that, and kill Brad, he would drop a special key. This key would be important if you're really into that, secret finding, because if you go to this save room, you can use this key to unlock this dressing room, or rather this closet, this locker. And in that, for both Claire and Leon, they have special outfits. Leon has 2 special outfits, where Claire only has 1. For Leon, he has a biker outfit and a more of a marine tank top, RPD cap style outfit. And both of these outfits, Leon was holding a standard pistol more sideways, while for Claire, she would have her own biker outfit, and she would actually get a new weapon, like a revolver that shoots a 6-round bullet each, every clip, which is pretty cool. Let's see here. I'm saving up my save data for a while because I don't want to really use it. So, yeah. All right. There's also a secret you could do in this screen. You gotta go to key config, and then for at least on PlayStation, there's a secret you can do here. And that secret could actually allow you to have infinite ammo on all weapons. But because I'm just that guy, and some of my weapons already have infinite ammo, and I just don't really, I wanted to challenge, but also I just know I don't really need it because I'm just that guy again. Like, I just won't use it, gang. Like, I'm just that guy. Like, y'all not understanding. I'm just him. I'm shut the fuck up. Now, continuing on with the lore of Resident Evil, as we're, kind of chilling because not much happening. Once they, Oswald E. Spencer, Edward, and Marcus traveled to Africa with a little bit of expeditions, they traveled to Africa for the only expedition. And during that expedition, they reached an underground little cave of sorts where they found an interesting plant. This plant was, if I remember correctly, known as the lilas flower. And this flower was similar in rose in terms of color, texture, but something about the flower was different. Now, this is also based off of reports that they found on newspaper while in Africa, talk about this flower and, make a lot of people sick, whoever goes near it and, smells the pollen. The pollen in the flowers contain a certain degenerative chemical in them. This was known as the progenitor virus. And this would be the original virus that not only would, start to be able to mutate the DNA of humans and evolve them, but also be the key component into creating not only the business that Oswald E. Spencer had envisioned, but also his goal to use what he learned from Mother Miranda a few years ago, on top of the whole idea about, there being a, sort of, living, live, breathing sort of, I guess you could say, hive or organism that can alter DNA and, gang, can I not? Gang, can I not? Lord have mercy, gang. Lord have freaking mercy. Is it like stuck to the wall? Oh, I think it's stuck to the wall. Disgusting. Alright, let's go in here. So yeah, guys, the art of pulling does not exist in the OG RE games for some reason. I don't even think so yeah, like they don't exist in OG RE games for some reason. So in order for you to reset a puzzle, you have to go to a door and come out. Luckily, if you do make a checkpoint in the puzzle, it will stay. So you want to do the entire thing, but it can get a little monotonous and annoying. Anyways, continuing on with the lore. Yeah, sort of organism that will kickstart off, the whole bioterrorism and all that idea. And so, again, the progenitor virus, a pollen that was found, or like a chemical that was found within not only the flower itself, but in the pollen that it emitted. Now, those who actually survived the disease effects from the pollen who breathed it actually were claimed to have gained pretty much mutated abilities. They have enhanced physical abilities, super speed, super agility, longer lifespan, etc., etc. And this again become the feeding grounds for Oswald's mission and the knowledge of gang. There's something that we can do with this. So, some of the researchers, including some of the original, like the three guys, mainly Edward, Marcus, and Oswald, would take some of this. I believe it was Edward who stayed behind in Africa to study the pollen more, while Oswald and Marcus would go back to the States to create their own version of the progenitor virus and utilize it more to mass produce. The whole goal was to create super soldiers in the United States government. However, this version of the virus will actually later be known as the T virus. Yes, the same virus that is outbreaking right now that's causing the zombies. But this also will prove to be some, mystical mishaps because of the fact that since they didn't understand entirely exactly the whole process of the progenitor virus and how it truly worked, a lot of times when they tried to use it correctly, it was all but to no avail. Meanwhile, it was speculated that the progenitor virus actually has certain characteristics innate to its homeland that gave it its special features and traits that, when they're not met with the required conditions, especially climate, cannot be produced in the way it should be produced. Now, eventually, the progenitor virus would be somewhat perfected to where sooner or later they would start grabbing test subjects. Around this time, during the 60s, they would not only start a company, but also gather subjects. This company would utilize the same symbol that Oswald found on one of Miranda's murals back when he was studying under Miranda in the 1950s, a decade earlier. This company, founded in 1966 to 1967, by Oswald E. Spencer being the main co-founder, but the co-founders being Edward and Marcus, will be the Umbrella Corporation. Yes, the International Pharmaceutical Enterprise Umbrella. Now, Umbrella would market itself as a pharmaceutical enterprise company there to protect the people and all that bullshit. But in reality, it was all covered to do illegal bioweaponry experiments under the hood. A lot of attempts will be made to make sure this was concealed, such as Oswald ordering a maze to be built in the outskirts of Reqiuem City in the Arklay Mountains, Spencer mentioned, where it will be sort of like a hideout to conceal bioweaponry that'll be taking place underneath the mansion, which will have its own lab. A lot of other Umbrella facilities will be located around the world, first starting in the States, then implanting some of its stuff in Africa, then all the way to even Antarctica. So to say that they were international would be not only the right statement, but in some sense the understatement. They were everywhere, from the European division to the Asian division to the Antarctic division, but obviously the North and South American division. They were all over the world by the 70s, especially by the 70s, where they were expanded beyond comprehension and their powers truly consolidated while still being an underground criminal boss enterprise, if that made any sense. Fun fact here, this is actually Albert Wesker's desk from Resident Evil 1. This is the STARS unit lab. The STARS members contain popular characters such as Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield, and some of y'all know him, Barry Burton, but also the main man, Albert Wesker, who is an important key figure and is one of the most important characters in this entire lore, because not only was he there during the little beginnings of Umbrella, but one of the main ties to why Umbrella exists, but also because he is actually one of the first subjects that Oswald took to test the progenitor virus on. And it became a success, which means that Albert Wesker not only had an enhanced lifespan, but also had increased physical abilities such as enhanced agility, speed, physical strength, and he was a very intelligent boy for his age. Very intelligent. Also, he spawned a few other siblings as well, and some of those will be tested and have their own little bioweaponry traits, but that's for another time. Around the same decade, during the 60s to the 70s, there will be another virus that we're using known as the T. Veronica virus, or later known as the Co. Veronica virus, that was supposed to be a mixture of some of the progenitor virus with the T virus and a new chemical mixture that was supposed to be used together. And the whole purpose of this virus was to actually be able to clone other people. Now, this was mainly headed by other divisions in Umbrella Corporation that were higher up in Spencer personally. It was also during this time where Spencer would kill off some of the co-founders like Edward and Marcus to consolidate his own power for the foreseeable future, which to a lot of success would occur. However, Edward would actually survive. Was it Edward or Marcus? I'm a little off of my lore, but one of the co-founding members would actually survive the attempted murder on them. And it will be one of the very few examples of one of the viruses being used correctly in some ways to perform, even though it was accidental. This is some of the lore I have so far in terms of the overall arching. I still need to research a lot more about the old school, but that's pretty much the majority of the gist of the basics. If you can see here, guys, this is Albert Wesker's desk, as I said before, and he was the captain of the Alpha Team Stars unit, the more upper division of the Stars unit in the Reqiuem Police Department. Stars, which stands for Tactical Forces and Rescue Services, was a privately, local funded group in the Reqiuem Police Department, headed by the chief of the Reqiuem Police Department, Chief Irons. And the whole purpose, while it looked like it was supposed to be a very organized, upper level pseudo SWAT type style team in the police station, was actually a group quietly funded by Umbrella to test bioweaponry on humans to see how well they will fend against them. And this occurred in Resident Evil 1, where Bravo team were sent into the Arklay Mountains after obviously reports of mysterious deaths and all that rare stuff happening. And in that time frame, they would be sent there to check out what the frick is going on. It was a horrible deal that went down. Only really surviving member was Rebecca Chambers, who was on Bravo team, who was also the new rookie in the Stars unit. Everybody else pretty much died or was on the brink of death and then later died. Some of them had some of the worst fates, with them getting eaten to death by zombies, others just getting pecked by crows, etc., etc. Some bleeding out, getting poisoned, etc., etc., etc. It was harsh. So a few days later, Alpha Team, which contained Brad Vickers, Joseph, Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, Albert Wesker, the leader, and Chris Redfield, who y'all definitely know of, will be sent there to track down Bravo Team since they went missing. We all know why, but they don't. They soon will find out why, as one of the Alpha Team members gets killed by one of the bioweapons around the Arklay Mountains, which is a zombie dog. And unfortunately, Joseph is killed in this process. He's the Masari member. Everyone fends for their lives and runs into the nearby mansion. Now, the story kind of gets a little wonky from there because it kind of depends on how you play the game. If you play as Jill, Chris is missing. If you play as Chris, Barry's missing. It's kind of Tony cost what's going on. And even then, the true ending is that everybody made it out except for Wesker because he was the villain this entire time. Shocker, who would have known? But the game doesn't really do a good job, showing that off. But hey, it is what it is, gang, right? It is what it is. But the reason why I'm saying this is out Wesker's desk multiple times too is because in Wesker's desk, there's a secret. Now, I won't do it in this playthrough, but if you do interact with this desk, I believe 50 times or a little less, 40 to 50 times, you will unlock a special film. Now, in the save room I was just in earlier, there's actually a hidden room or like a back room y'all saw. And that room is actually where you can develop film there. And in that room, I actually might do this, I don't know, it depends. But in that room, right, gang, you can find films like the entire RPD station. And once you go to that room, you can make a film which shows extra content of lore, story bits, tidbits, some cool little images to have the game. and also just shows pictures of like just the bioterrorism, like the virus and the outbreak. Now, in this desk, there's a secret film that actually shows a portrait. Oh, and I got it. Wow. So this is a secret film. And in this film, I'm going to show you it in a minute because we need to go back down to that little area anyways. But in that, film, you're going to see something very rather interesting. And you're going to really question Wesker. Because here's the thing. Rebecca, during this time, is freshly out of college. She's like 18 years old. Literally 18 years old. Fresh out of college. Barely out of college. And Wesker, by this time, is in his mid-30s. You gotta see why. Anyways, this is actually Chris Redfield's diary, and pretty much he just kind of goes over the little bit, recapping the events of the first game, but also talks about his feelings of, the public's reaction. If you hear what Marvin said earlier, no one believed the public when Astars came out about exposing Umbrella's, secrets and that they're using bioweaponry and all that jazz. And so he's kind of writing them all down, and he actually leaves Raccoon City to go on his own expedition to take down Umbrella on his own terms, leaving this note for Claire specifically. And just as we are about to finish, guess who comes in? Claire Redfield.
Leon!
It's good to see you're still among the living.
Yeah.
It looks like we're not gonna find your brother here after all. There's no reason for us to stay any longer than necessary. Let's split up, look for any survivors, and get out of here.
Right.
I
One
agree.
last thing. Here's a radio. Take it. That way we can keep in touch if anything happens.
I concur. I love Smiley. I love they were able to manage to conjure the smile from Leon. Now, I did mention earlier that you can pick up the shotgun if you did pick up the shotgun off the guy in that shop earlier that I did. And this is actually the room where you pick up the shotgun. It's in this locker right here. And you can see right there, there's a shotgun. Now, obviously, I have one, and I can't carry it anywhere if I wanted to, so I won't pick it up. But yeah, that's just there. And she does move only for that section. And if you interact with her, she will say this.
I can't believe what is happening to this city.
I know, right, gang? So this is Chris Redfield's desk. This is Jill Valentine's desk. This was the communications where this is like the comms here where they used to make communications radio signals. This was a new member's desk. Going over here, this is Barry Burton's desk. And of course, obviously, the leader, Wesker. Now, I want to say that this actually might have been Joseph's desk, considering that I think he was probably in the group at the time, but who knows. I love this music. This is actually one of my favorite areas of this game, mainly due to just like the atmosphere, but mainly also just kind of the music. Like the music here is just so sad, but also it's kind of like anime. It has like an anime tune to it, and considering this art style is kind of almost a little bit like anime in some regards, especially if you look like the freaking models here. Like, gang, this gives that anime vibe. You feel me? Pretty cool. Oh shit, I forgot to show you my favorite area of the game. Well, we go back there anyway, so it's not that bad, but it is one of my favorite areas of the game for a reason. Now, if you do go back in that room again, the music won't appear. It would be like a very dark, methodical, like crazy ass music. And if you progress the game a little longer and go back in that room, you won't find Claire there, obviously, which does add, a little bit of immersion and believability to the world, because it proves that, Claire has her own agendas in here and is doing her own thing. You know what I mean? I like that. Also, I got to mention that there's actually technically 2 campaigns this entire game. Aside from just playing, Leon and Claire's campaign, I'm actually playing the non-canon way. Non-canon way is Leon A, Claire B. The canon ending or canon gameplay campaign is Claire A, Leon B, and it's mainly due to the fact that like some of the lore and plot points and story beats and some of the things that happen in the specific campaign, Leon B, Claire A, carries on to later Resident Evil games, at least when it came to the OG timeline of the Resident Evil games. Therefore, it makes sense that A gang, you know what? Shit. Guess it was Claire A, Leon B. But Leon A, Claire B isn't also a bad game or like campaign either, and it does give you a lot more replayability just to see the different interactions, cutscenes, environments, puzzles, intricacies, and all that jazz. You know what I mean? Pretty nice. Alright, let's go in here. Because I genuinely do gotta show y'all this. So, here is the film room. And if you go over here, you can develop, it even says it right here, I can develop the film here. So go here. Sometimes you got to go to your inventory and then in an area where you can do something and then be able to do it, or you have to press the X button and interact with it and then you'll be able to use it. It's kind of weird sometimes. You just got to understand what happens. But yeah, this is a old school version, gang, of Resident Evil Rebecca, freshly out of college. You can tell she's a little bit hesitant to take this picture, like, you know, she's not too comfortable, and I couldn't blame her. But yeah, this is her freshly out of college, or at least like graduating college around that time. Yeah, she was on the basketball team. And it's kind of weird how a 35-year-old man, Albert Wesker, has a film of this on his desk of an 18-year-old. And yes, it's not legal, but it's just kind of like, what are you doing there, buddy? Like, you got to be the craziest gooner in the entire world, yet the most influential character of all time, gang. Anyways, the reason why I didn't go through that little hallway down the hall to my right when I got out the STARS unit office, because that door is actually locked. But there's a reason why we got the medal from picking up the diary. We need to go, like I said, we need to go all the way freaking back to the, you know, area. Okay. I don't know why I got scared again. I knew this was gonna occur and I still got scared like an idiot. But anyways, going back through here, we need to go back to the major, big old, giant labyrinth hallway of the RPD. Now, you might also notice that this does not really function like a Reqiuem police station, so for the most part. And you aren't wrong. The lore here was that the RPD station was founded and built inside an art museum, which is why everything looks so artistic. And like is like a more of like a methodical museum than an actual police station, because it was just bought out. And the police is just kind of built around the art museum, which is why everything just kind of looks like this. But yeah, gang, you know, pretty poggers. Anyways, we have to go here because it says fountain, something's written here. To obtain the key to open your heart, I'll wait for the unicorn, the beautiful beast. And if you look over here, this is actually a unicorn medal, and it fits the incarnation. So we just kind of, and then we watch this cutscene, and then boop. This gives us the person key, and this key is important because if you check it, make sure you also check these keys because they usually indicate the type of doors you need to go through. But this indicates the shape of a spade, and there's actually 2 doors that require this key. Yeah, I know. Yeah, definitely is. Yeah. I just saw your comment just now, Leah. I don't know if like the stream is a little delayed for you or not, but yeah. But what was I saying earlier? Yeah, like check the keys, because throughout the game, especially in early phases, you're gonna go through a lot. There's a lot that will most likely need some sort of key item, like keys, for example. And if you check this door, for example, there, spade key. This will say the key etched hole is in the shape of a spade, which shows you that like you need like a key that's in the shape of a spade, and this key was in the shape of a spade. Now this seems to be a copy machine room or fax machine room of sorts, and it's actually important you need to be here because push this ladder. go up here, and you're gonna need this crane. You're gonna hella need this freaking island crane. This crane is gonna be important. You don't need it necessarily now, but you will need it in the future, like damn near in the future. As a matter of fact, you'll probably see this in this live stream because this game. I'm very like speedrunning with this game because I know pretty much most of what's gonna occur, and like obviously like you know the keys and all that jazz. Now, I also want to talk about the game itself. The OG Resident Evil games are, to say the least, very interesting. If you have noticed, fixed cameras, which are very new for a lot of gamers back in time, especially for the olden days, people who are using modern games, they don't use over-shoulder perspective cameras. They use fixed cameras. Now, if anyone who's played a game like God of War or Devil May Cry would also probably be familiar with fixed cameras and know that the control schemes for the most part are there. They're not bad. They're actually pretty modern by today's standards, but they could be a little clunky at times. The control schemes for Resident Evil 2 was the most clunkiest, or the OG Resident Evil games, specifically RE 1, 2, 3, and even Code Veronica, would be the most clunkiest. Y'all can't see it, but I'm actually moving up on the left stick. I'm moving forward on the left stick right now. And I know it sounds off, sounds weird, especially for a lot of people who probably don't know about this. Right now, I'm literally moving forward. Like, I'm moving forward. Like, I can't move downward when the camera's facing Leon. I gotta continue moving up on the analyst, as if I'm looking at Leon through this perspective, right here. And this is because the game uses something called tank controls. Tank controls, especially for PS1 games, were a control scheme designed to basically make the players, the playable characters, feel like a tank. The reason why another reason why they're called tank controls is for the main purpose that with fixed cameras, the movement isn't dependent on where the camera is facing the character, but where the character will be facing as if you're playing him either behind the shoulder or over the shoulder, like here, for example, or through the first person view. So whenever your camera shifts, you gotta look at them as if they're from like a perspective, like a first person perspective, pretty much. Like how would they, like despite the camera facing them, what would they see and how would they move in conjunction to where they're looking, not where the camera's facing them. Also, side note here, every time you use a key, this message will pop up. And whenever you get this message for any item that's usually like a key or like an access point, they will say this key it's useless now. Discard, meaning that you can no longer use the key. And if you discard it, nothing really bad will happen because you don't have any use for the key no more. It's useless. So that's a pretty nice little thing that the Capcom added. I'm glad they added that. Y'all having a nice snack over there, buddy? Yeah? Listen, buddy. I don't remember you asked you if you to get up. I'm asking any of y'all to get up. Hey, buddy, I don't remember asking you to get up. Yeah, RP this dude. Now, this is actually a door that you can never access no matter what. It is nailed shut. You can't go through here at all. Now, there is ammo here. So you can pick that up if you want. But, yeah. I'm gonna start using the pistol now. I probably should have freaking, kindly put the crank in the freaking, thingamajigger, but it's just a kebab. As a matter of fact, I don't even need to. Here we are in the library. And the art room as well. It's actually one of my favorite tunes of the game. It's very horror, spooky vibe and very methodical. I love it. But this also has a puzzle on its own. I'm gonna speedrun the puzzle obviously because I know what the freaking puzzle piece is. But before I do that, we can use the crank right now, ladies and gentlemen. If you come up here, you reach the third floor of this entire section. This is the only part of the third floor. This is the only section of the third floor. You got over here, which is nothing. And then you continue on down this way, and there's actually something over here. A door. But this is the entirety of the 3rd floor, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, there's nothing else, but there's this and this. And technically there is a 4th floor if you want to count it, because, well, go to this area. It's a square hole. This bad boy, check it. The end is square shape. Clearly, plus uses in this hole. And if you rotate it, you got stairs, which leads upstairs. This is why I said there's technically 4 floors in the RPD station, but this calls because they're like a little mini attic of sorts, right? But yeah, here's the highest peak of the RPD station internally. This is also a little bit of a puzzle, but you need to like grab a gear and then put it in, and then you gotta push a button, and this will open up something. Which will also lead to like another puzzle, because it will also give you an item that you can use and all that jazz and yada yada yada, blah 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 blah, jazz, blah 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 blah. But because we don't have the item for now, we're gonna go back. Now moving on a little bit with the lore. Obviously I'm going to be skipping around a little bit with the lore because again, most of it I should do more research on, and I'm just going off of the games I've mainly played and know a lot about and sense of knowledge. After, Stars returned from, Reqiuem Mountains, after our arc, because I did kind of spend the lore rate of RE0, which, not really RE0, but RE1, with the whole Bravo team and, Alpha team going to Reqiuem Mountains. They actually would mainly investigate the Spansher Mansion because they actually were forced to run into the Spansher Mansion, which is where they would find a lot of the Umbrella's true intentions and what they've been doing during the scenes. And also be exposed to bioweaponry, such as giant snakes, giant spiders, zombies, plant life forms, etc., etc. It was, to say the least, very disturbing, and would definitely put any regular person in years of therapy. And even that won't help them. So yeah, it was a crazy time. But pretty much, they checked it out. Everything, yada yada yada. Albert Wesker is confirmed to be a villain. Shocker, who would have guessed? And in that time frame, they unleashed the bioweapon known as the T-108, which is the. Oh, actually, my bad. Yeah, T-108, which is the Tyrant. Oh, no, my bad. T-001. That was the first ever model of the Tyrant project that perfected the T-virus chemical and stuff like that. The problem with it was that it lacked a lot of basic controls. You couldn't really control it because it kind of got out of control. And, well, you kind of could just kill it with a rocket launcher. Very simply too, because all it really had gang was like a exposed heart. It was pretty much just like a glorified, taller, stronger zombie, pretty much, that didn't really eat human flesh, just kind of like wanted to kill and kill. Pretty methodical. All right, let's just kill this guy with a regular pistol. But yeah, after which, by the way, Albert Wesker did die to the Tyrant, but obviously, we've seen Wesker in Resident Evil 4, we've seen him in Code Veronica, we've seen him in Chronicles, we've seen him in Revelation, well, not Revelations, but we've seen him in 5, which 5 would be his last appearance because he does die in 5, but that's a little bit spoiler. But yeah, gang, it just kind of proves that, like, Wesker was, like, built different this entire time. Like, genuinely, he was built different. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something very important that I kind of looked forgot. Just some more ink ribbons. This is actually safe from 2, just to let y'all know this. This one also has diary. If y'all want to kind of, stop and so you can read this, go ahead. I'm just gonna kind of skim through this all. Alright. Actually, I'll just use on my way when I'm going down that specific path because I'm gonna go down there anyways. Alright, so Continuing on what I was saying earlier. Once they managed to kill all that jazz, whatnot, what have they and Wesker supposedly died to the to the tyrant, but even though it was confirmed that he didn't die, but was just severely injured. Gang would the remaining survivors of the STARS unit, both Bravo and okay, wow, that look kind of jolted me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, gang. I wanted to see if it was alive now. But anyways, the remaining survivors of the STARS unit would eventually, be able to escape the mansion before it blew up. There, when they return back to Reqiuem City, they try to report their findings. Of course, to no avail. So, Chris, obviously easily upset and wanted to take down, you feel me, Umbrella for their heinous crimes, will go on his own little expedition. This will be the last people we'll ever see of Chris for a good while. He's been pecked to death, and if you expect his body even more, he has some handgun ammo. But yeah, there's also 2D art, so you can kind of just walk over it. Yeah, that's how you know it's like a 2D playing game. Definitely a little bit of a cheap jump scare there. Can't lie, not that much. But anyways, this is a burning helicopter that needs to be put out, and it was actually lead us to a next puzzle that we can locally solve simply because we already got some of the stuff we already need, genuinely. But going down here, I'm going to grab an item. Alright. You know what? Screw this. Alright. Now to continue on. What was it? Yeah. Now, shortly after, the whole Spanish Mansion incident, Umbrella obviously, like the intro said, would have stopped with the whole bioweaponry experiments. Matter of fact, they would create a new virus, which is supposed to be an enhanced version of the T virus, known as the G virus, which is supposed to be even bigger and better than the T virus. This one would also be used to sell to the military by a man named William Birkin, who is an important scientist that was there for the early beginnings. Well, mostly the early beginnings of but the Umbrella Corporation, startings. Was also one of the people that was, orchestrated and ready to assassinate one of the co-founders of Umbrella, who the same guy who got assassinated would later survive. But yeah, crazy time. Ultimately, though, he would be the lead scientist advisor and scientist on the G virus, which was for the most part a success, but still needed some more of it in the cook. However, he was planning on selling this to the military for their own uses. And Spencer didn't like that, so he ordered a military-funded unit of the Umbrella to sterilize, quote unquote, William Birkin and stop him from taking it. From selling it. During his final breaths, before he died, which he actually wouldn't end up not really dying, but would also kind of die, he ended up taking a sample of the G virus himself, while Annette tried to find something to help her dying husband. Which was William's wife, Annette Birkin. And he will slowly mutate into a gigantic monster that's actually roaming Raccoon City as we speak. This is actually where we will see him soon, but I won't tell you what it is. You'll figure that out eventually if you even get to that point before I gotta eventually end the stream soon. But yeah, and during this time too, Umbrella decided it was about time to not let out their experience, but also test how well regular humans were fare against bioweaponry. And so, on the early mornings of September 27th or 26th, like late into the night, early into the morning of the September 26th, early September 27th of 1998, they would launch a purposeful outbreak. Not only outbreaking the T virus, but also outbreaking the all the bioweapons that they were experimenting on into the streets of Raccoon City. And this ultimately leads to the events of Resident Evil 2 and by virtue Resident Evil 3, which is where we now are playing, where we see our boy Leon and Claire find themselves in, and yada yada. And well, the rest is history. And we'll play most of the game on here too. But Resident Evil 2 and 3 are pretty similar. The only difference is that like Resident Evil 2 plays 2 characters, while Resident Evil 3, well, you still do play as 2 characters, but you mainly play as Jill Valentine. Yes, that Jill Valentine for RE1, Returning Stars, remember, who is there for the early days of the outbreak. So Resident Evil 3 takes place before, during, and a day or two after RE2, where your whole job is to escape Raccoon City before it gets blown up by a missile that's aiming straight for the heart of RC to sterilize and contain the virus of that's in Raccoon City, ordered by the U.S. government, so that way no more casualties and shit like that would occur in general at all, and for a fucking good reason, gang. Now this is actually a valve, and you have to put this valve in, like a valve hole. You have to put this valve in here. Now, this won't be the last time you use a valve. You use it again, but it will be way later in the game, like towards like the third act of the game. Yeah, that late into the game. So you could keep this bad boy in the item box for now, but just know you will need it in the latter half of the game, mainly in the sewage sections of the area, like the more labyrinth, bigger sewage sections of the area that kind of intersects into the place they need for the to get to the laboratory factory area. So yeah, but now we're gonna actually reach one of my favorite spots in this entire game, guys, if not my favorite spot in the entire game. I want y'all to just listen. Now, why this is my favorite? Well, because there's no music. It's just ambience, wind, the darkness, the silence. It's eerie. What adds to this eeriness is, if you listen carefully, you hear these random noises. If y'all couldn't tell already, those are actually zombies roaming the streets right now. I know, very cool. This is actually one of the reasons why this is my favorite spot of the game, because of the atmosphere and the tone this area specifically gives you. It's such an eerie vibe, but it's one that is warranted and makes so much sense, especially considering the concept of the game. It's perhaps one of my favorite spots of the entire game for good reason, because of the fact that it just makes you feel off and just and I love it. I love it so much. Definitely like top 5 favorite spots of Resident Evil 2 original. I will say that they do have a lot more music in this game than they did in the original. Also, here's a fun fact I forgot to mention. The director who directed this game, the original Resident Evil 2, and probably a good reason to why it's way more action focused than even RE1. It's the same director. They're going to direct the first Devil May Cry game, and later would direct the entire and later would direct the Bayonetta series. Bayonetta series, my bad. That being Hideki Kamiya. Yes, that Hideki Kamiya. He first directed this game. And despite him being more of an action guy than an horror guy, he damn well cooked. And it shows with the sales and just the popularity people have with this game. Like, this is many people's go-to PS1 Resident Evil game for a lot of people. And, well, shit, for good reason, gang. I'm going here so I can put this in the item box. Like, I don't need the freaking valve anymore. I'm also going to get rid of the rocket launcher for now. Mix the ink ribbons with this. Put the herb in here. Keep that herb. We're going to grab, excuse me, some shotgun shells. And we're going to go back out. We're going to keep it a little bit simple this time. We're going to be less, feel me, less, cheap and cheesy, and more fair and, I guess you could say, original. Now, after Raccoon City, there would be a period in which, people would still be trying to, finish up the whole Umbrella saga. Now, there is an important story that occurs. Now, I'm yet to play the game, but the premise of Code Veronica is that we follow Claire Redfield only 2 months after the events of Raccoon City, where she's still searching for her brother, and gets captured by a group, and is taken to a island, or like a prison island in, I believe it was France. However, is later on, after escaping with another prisoner, is taken over to an island, an umbrella facility all the way over in Antarctica, where she needs to stop something from occurring, aka the T Veronica virus and the Code Veronica virus from occurring, which is named Code Veronica. There, she meets another prisoner there, and they work together and, try to take everything out. That prisoner will later sacrifice himself to help Jill out. In the meantime, Chris makes his way over to the island where his sister is, Claire, and we're finally to reunite. You might be wondering, how the hell did that happen? Well, during the time where Claire was captured, she managed to escape with the guy and actually found a computer. There, she sent an email out to Leon, let him know that she's been captured and she needs help. And Leon did all he could in his power to track down Chris and warn him through email that, your sister's in trouble. This would be the first ever interaction Chris and Leon ever had with each other. And this is also during the time where Leon was actually working for the U.S. government, beyond his will, actually, shortly after the events of Raccoon City. And during that time, he was actually on his own little mission himself, but being a good guy he knew he had to save one of his closest friends. So, therefore, he did what he did, despite him having his own mission that was very important to the task at hand. With that in mind, it was also confirmed and shown that Wesker was actually alive officially. A lot of lore was really, introduced into Code Veronica, and the Code Veronica virus would actually make a return in multiple games, from Revelations to Resident Evil 6 and even a bit of Resident Evil 5. So Code Veronica virus and T Veronica virus were definitely remain present in the lore of Resident Evil for many years to come. Around this time too, after all that whole debacle, we come to the year 2003, where Jill and Chris team up again to join their special forces to track down and finally take down Umbrella in some way, shape, or form. And they had to travel to, I believe it was I forgot which country it was, but it was one of the European countries over in the west, east, and one of the last strongholds of the Umbrella facility to, track down and stop whatever bioterrorism happening and stop Umbrella. At the same time, Chris and Albert Wesker would cross paths yet again since Code Veronica, but would not really get to any altercations, for Albert was actually there on his own little escapade to get revenge on Umbrella. And this is where, and one of the reasons why Wesker is one of the most important characters. Not only did he set most for a lot of things, that were one of the leading ties behind the Catalyst, but he was pulling the strings behind the downfall of Umbrella. But here's the real reason, that's the main ultimate reason as to why he is also so important. He will be the reason why Umbrella actually collapsed. He managed to gain files on everything, every little top secret, dirty secret Umbrella been doing since their beginnings, even before the beginnings of Umbrella. And with this little device, Wesker will release it to the public. And from there, Umbrella stock market crashed. They lost a lot of stocks, and Umbrella as a corporation fell under. That being the end of the Umbrella Corporation in its entirety. All thanks to Albert Wesker. I told you he will be one of the most important characters, not only just in terms of like his status as being the perfect bioweapon in, the entire Resident Evil, but he was definitely doing a lot of things during and after the whole, like the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and obviously even into the early 2000s. He was still being a prominent character, a prominent role, and definitely doing a lot of great shit. Around this time too now, since Umbrella's now collapsed, this left a gap in the bioterrorism power and show people the true power, or the true lucrative and ability people can have with the whole with the whole idea of not the whole idea, but with the whole bioweaponized bioorganism and experiments and all that jazz. Therefore, we lead to the second phase, or the second era of Resident Evil, known as the Action Era, which contains Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, and even some of the Revelations games, where, aside from Revelations, even though Revelations has stuff like that, but pretty much where we will start to see the effect of how Umbrella impacted and changed the world, and how their experiments on bioorganism, bioterrorism would affect other countries around the world, starting with RE4, starring recurring character from RE2, Leon Scott Kennedy, who's now 6 years into becoming an agent, and is now tasked with finding the missing daughters of the president's missing daughter, who was last located in a lowing world area in Europe, specifically rural Spain, where there he will come across a cult known as Los Illuminados, and there he will find out that they have not like zombies, but are victims controlled by a parasite that are pretty much controlling their thoughts. They retain the basic characteristics and functionality of humans, but you could tell there's something definitely wrong with them, especially in the original and remake. And from there on, Leon would go through a lot of crazy monstrosities, such as giant mutated bugs that are humanoid. Yes, that those exist. Giant head exploding things with tendrils and tentacles popping out, and an advanced version where it has teeth and it could just kind of one-shot you if you're not careful. Like freaking getting axe, sworded, macheted, scythe, even though he in Lord Daughter, going across giant monstrosities, and eventually finding the cult leader, Lord Osmond Sadler, and finally killing him, putting aside his evil schemes, and destroying the Las Plagas. However, parts of Las Plagas, even some of the DNA and like the research over them, still remain intact, and a lot was, found across some of the world, and will be used to be expanded out further. More specifically in Africa, where they managed to make an enhanced version of the Las Plagas, known as Las Plagas Type 2, which then would enhance what already, was sort of limited with the first Las Plagas. However, there were some limitations with Las Plagas too, where it had to be, inserted orally rather than actually just being kind of injected, and it was a little more harder to control. They made a lot of different enhancements of the Las Plagas type, but each of the new advancements led to more problems than actually solving any good, to where they kind of just dropped the project entirely because it just wasn't going well. Around this time, they would create a new kind of bioweaponry organism known as Ouroboros, which was one of the most enhanced at the peak of bioweaponry, where pretty much those who want injected with it need to be quote unquote worthy in order to handle the effects. If you were sort of worthy, you would gain almost an immortal lifespan, physical strength, healing, speed, pretty much the traditional traits of how a lot of these viruses, mutate the DNA, but like enhancing it further beyond and almost give you near immortality. And due to that, the Orbo is one of the most bigger underground, weapons that was actually a real whole threat and could have actually affected the entire world had it been mass produced. Fortunately for our heroes Chris and Sheva, who was a newcomer and who was in Africa, because Chris was going over to Africa to handle some business there, but also potentially discover the whereabouts of Jill, since during this expedition he finds out that Jill's potentially alive, and so continues to think that is in Africa just so he can find out what the frick is going on, and Jill's alive. And then this time he and Sheva come across many different amalgamations, such as the African civilians acting a lot more like the Ganados from RE4, and even sharing almost similar one-to-one traits. For some of the other more obscure, disgusting, more creepier enemies, they will come across some of the more bug-like creatures, such as mini-type spider-looking creatures, a moth-looking hybrid creature that kind of like rucks around and flies. That's fun. And it's also a one more type of bug that's probably one of the most scariest, not most scariest, but like creepiest bugs out there. And they're similar to the bug creatures from RE4 that I mentioned, the humanoid giant bug creatures. In RE4 they're known as the Novicidors, which is Castilian Spanish for the unseen. In Resident Evil 5, though, they're similar but not quite the same. They're actually never supposed to exist. See, if y'all don't like cockroaches, click off. These specific enemies were known as the Reapers. And Reapers from RE5, well, how do I say this? They're pretty much giant cockroaches. That's the best I can say. They're giant cockroaches with razor sharp, like crawl fangs, not fangs, but like razor sharp, like legs and claws, like it just kind of like stab at you, and really just like kind of get at your ass. They're really creepy. They can also crawl, sometimes pretty fast too, and they can stand upright and walk to you. That's fun, yeah. And here's the crazy part too: you can't really kill them. I mean, you can kill them. That's the lie. You can kill them with traditional weapons, but you can't just shoot at them and hope for the best, because their skin, for some reason, is hard shelled. They expose white fleshy spots we need to aim at in order for you to truly kill them, and there you would actually be able to, murder them. Now be careful, because if they get too close to you, they will enable a type of. Now they don't normally do it, but there is a one-hit kill that they can do where they kind of like trap you in their like legs. And like just start stabbing at your like side area repeatedly, non-stop. Imagine envisioning that before you go to sleep tonight. That's fun. Yeah. So the Reapers, one of the more scary. Well, no, one of the more creepier enemy types. Maybe just the whole bug aspect of it, really. But whatever. But yeah, gang. Definitely weird typers, that's for sure. Now, luckily, right, all these bad boys are all dead and gone. And of course, luckily for most of them, survivors and people who make it out, they do manage to take down Ouroboros and everything like that. But not without the final reunion of Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield, and Albert Wesker, who are now in their pretty much peak physical capabilities. So, prior to Resident Evil 9, which takes place in 2006, shortly after the formation of the BSAA, which was the Biostandard, Biostandard Alliance Force or something like that. I forgot. Assurance Alliance, something like that. I forgot the last two AAs stand for. But they're pretty much an anti-bioterrorist military group that were there that were actually started up by Jill and Chris themselves, and were there solely to protect innocents, stop bioweaponry from getting out of hand, and of course, keep the world a better place. Now, later on, the BSA, Jill and Chris were later ordered to track down Albert Wesker. Actually, no, they were later able to track down Oswald E. Spencer, whose last known best was at a nearby, mansion hideout. And hopefully, who knows, maybe find Wesker afterwards and put a stop to this. Now, this is also to get revenge on all the crap that Spencer put everybody through and the entire world through because of his sick mind and whatever. However, when Jill and Chris got to the mansion and managed to actually make it to where Spencer was, he was already dead, and standing above his corpse was Wesker. Wesker had made it and already killed Spencer mainly out of revenge, and therefore insinuated Chris and Wesker, which Wesker clearly just mollywopped both of them and should have killed them, but plot. Before Wesker could get the final blow on Chris and finally end his life, Jill supposed to sacrifice herself by tackling into Wesker and jumping off a window, leading to her supposed death. The BSA would try to find any mention of bodies, but couldn't find any, and so reported them dead, which definitely hurt Chris and put a mental strain on him for a while. However, again, a few years later, in 2009, we see the events of RE5, where, oh shoot, she might be alive, and then eventually it's confirmed that she's alive, but she's also been mind-controlled and test subjugized by Wesker. Also found out that there's also residue T virus within Jill that had been dormant, but now been reactivated. This will be important, especially in Reqiuem. But this kind of, manifestation allowed her to actually have her own little antibodies and mini superhuman strength and ability, if that makes sense, despite her not really knowing too much. Additionally, her hair became blonde. Why? Due to the amount of experiments Wesley was doing to him. This is not a lie. She became blonde because of experiment reasons. Okay. I actually wasn't scared that time because Lil was gonna pop out. But nice try, dickhead. But yeah. Anyways, they managed to take the cloning device off, and that was attached to Jill's chest. Pretty much, they took that off thanks to the efforts of them. From there, Sheva and Chris would make it and crack down Wesker, who is accompanied by Xelagione, who is actually one of the leading heads in the Tricer, who also funds BSAA. So there's some corruption going on behind the scenes with some of these military forces that are trying to supposedly fight against bioterrorism. But anyways, after the alliance between Xelagione and Albert Wesker betrays Gione by judging her with Ouroboros, and Gione, not being worthy, turns into the giant amalgamation of what Ouroboros truly was. Therefore, just, oofy, oofy, doofy, ooh, daisy, daisy, oofy. And from there, Chris and Sheva are forced to kill Xelagione in this form, and as she finally dies, because she's in the form, even though she already died anyways, they now finally reach to where they can find Wesker, find some of the last remaining Lion the Vesses, make it to Wesker, and stop him, and manage to stop him before he started to, kill any other civilians that might, cross his path. And that was the end of RE5, with them finally being able to put 2 rocket launchers between Wesker's eyes, and Wesker finally dies. But it's not the end of the Wesker lineage, because we do have Wesker's sister, and we also have the son of Wesker, Jake Mueller. But that will be a story for later on. What time is it? 1 hour in? It's pretty good. What time is it? Alright, yeah, we're doing good on time. Doing Gucci on time, gang. So I'm thinking about something. Where do I want to go? Oh, I know where I need to go. Here, let me check the map. Yeah, I figure as such. Yeah. So this is the first floor. Yeah. Great. All right. I want to go down here, or do I want to kind of like go through here? There's two ways I can do this. I'm gonna just do it this way. I'm already going here anyways. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah, give me a second, guys. I've returned, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for my absence. Anyways, doing pretty good on time. Alright, what are we doing here? Yes, going down. Now, the CGI movies for Resident Evil are actually imperative to the lore and the story of Resident Evil, but I haven't watched CGI movies and I kind of don't care too much. Well, I don't care too much. I'm going to watch it regardless, but it's kind of silly for me to do that now, so might as well just kind of gangly, dingly, hangly, fangly, mambly, wambly, chambly, wait. But yeah, you feel me, gang? It's gonna be pretty Pogarina, pretty fire, pretty hell yeah. Hell yeah. Now, if I'm correct, of course I wasn't. I kind of just waste my time. Alright. Genuinely, now I gotta think. What do I have this key for? First of all, that's not it. This is a diamond-shaped key. What are diamond etched for? Oh, I know. Exactly know. Exactly know. Yes, exactly know. What I'm gonna have to do is go to the freaking iron ladder. More for water. Yeah, I could do it this way. Alright, gonna go through here. So following some time after Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6 starts to take place, which a new virus known as the C virus starts to occur. And pretty much this is a version of the called Veronica virus, T Veronica virus, a little bit of the Plagas in there, and some of the overall general T virus that was, in since the beginning. So there's a mixture of almost every little itty bitty of a virus in here. This is created by a character named Carla, who is actually surprisingly in the spinning image of Ada Wong. Now, what's weird about this person is that she doesn't act anything like Ada Wong. Right? Again, this isn't Ada Wong. But she's actually a clone spawned from a C virus experiment done in China by the National Security Advisor, Derek Simmons, who is the most evil looking person you can ever fucking think of. Like Loki, you would definitely see from a mile away. Yeah, no, this nigga looks fucking evil, and you wouldn't be wrong because the nigga does look fucking evil. Essentially, he is the person that kills the current president of that time in 2012 to 2013, Adam Baker. Adam Becker, my bad. Wow, okay. This is the only time I'm ever going to go back in time. The only ever time, because I was wasting bullets. Let's do this one more time. If I fuck this up again, I'm never playing this game again. Alright. I live with my mistakes and don't get upset, I suppose. Yeah, so that's gonna be for Claire Redfield when she goes through here. Oh, hey, buddy. Are you serious? You serious? Alright. See, now that's what we're gonna, say. Like, you feel me? This is not okay. You feel me? Because it's not freaking okay. Right? Because, gang, we just can't allow that. We just cannot allow that to occur in my Christian Minecraft server, gang. It's not adequate, admirable, amendable. I don't know what I'm saying, bro. Genuinely, I have no idea what the frick I'm saying, bro. I'm just yapping the yap. Now, the music is pretty similar from earlier in the stream. If you guys recognize this place, well, I'll show you exactly where we're at. Actually, use this bad boy because I kind of need it. Yep, this is the same area where we found Marvin. We can lock the door from out here now. We had the same area where we found Marvin. In here we can find some handgun bullets. This is actually this specific spot was supposed to be the welcome party for Leon Scott Kennedy. You give me a note. Leon. They're pretty much congratulating Leon Scott Kennedy for making it for being, accepted to the Reqiuem Police Department. Which is pretty cool. And fun fact, guys, if you actually, especially if you play on like higher resolution mods for the game, if you actually read here, this actually says welcome Leon, but it's actually a typo. They accidentally spelled welcome with 2 L's. So yeah, that was fun. And here we can see Marvin. And just like in the remake, he turns into a zombie. This is the third model of Marvin. He's unfortunately killed by our hands this time. Now we got the heart-shaped key, which means now we can kind of go back through those specific areas. Mainly just through here, because, gang, we go through here. If you remember from the beginning, we kind of reached out this door, which is kind of broken, and we're back in the main area. We can just kind of, you feel me, just go through here. Literally, the most easiest way to get through here. Now, there are multiple guns throughout this area or around the game that you can actually find, and there's some range from pretty powerful to just standard to like just holy crap, tell them what the fuck we're doing, gang. And they're real peak cinema too, so enjoy them. I don't want to ask. I'm gonna ask. Now, the wire I picked up is actually for 2 sections. The section where you first encounter the liquor, and this section we're going to go into right now, which kind of leads to the second floor as well. And this wire is like a one-time use, but it will affect the secondary campaign, which is why I've been saving it for this section. Because here you're going to go in the second campaign, you're going to go through this section early on, and especially in this area, we actually kind of got to go through these guys again, and genuinely, I'm not trying to really deal with that. So, just gonna cut that off. Now we're done with the wire. We genuinely cannot use the wire anymore. Plus ratio, sorry, not sorry. Now, this will be our final key we'll need, at least for the RPD station. And this key is a spade key. Another percent key, but in spade. And we'll get this key for a good minute, because we gotta introduce ourselves to a character who we're all way too familiar with. Ooh, the music changed, the environment changed, everything changed. Yeah, no. Yeah, no. Alright. It's garbage. I love dogs, but oh my gosh. Shut the frick up, bro. Damn. Now, if I am correct though here, what does this lead to? Does this lead to the generator room? Yeah, it does. Now, this specific area will be important if you go in here, because if you gangly go in here, you will have access to a secret door or like room that requires a keycard pass. And this keycard pass is really my bad. As you keycard pass, you will be able to unlock a door that requires a power supply to be on, and from there you can get 2 new guns. One of them I already have from being just the grenadization of grenade. Yeah, I effed it up on accident. Hold on, my brain power is kind of retarded. Stupid. One else. Stupid else was up. down, up, down. I'm smart. I'm smart. I'm so smart. That's the doors, and that's gonna be important because again, one of the guns I already have, but another thing you can unlock is actually inventory increase storage. And I'm like, okay, no, it's an item slot, and that will be genuinely important for your adventures, especially in the classic RE games. So we go down through here. This actually leads to the outside area, which this will be my ever first save on the rookie game range mode of the game. And for a good reason. First of all, I'm gonna go grab this with her because it's gonna be imperative. Kind of just speed run this bad boy because the last thing I need is to get a body while I'm trying to get out here. But yeah, there are two dogs that do jump down from their sorts of ledges and try to munch at you. This book is too small for adults to come back. Yeah, that would be in Claire's campaign, which we won't get to today because we're mainly focused on my boy Leon. But hey, you know, he exists, right? He exists. Feel me? You normally go through here. Yeah, not every typer is gonna have an equipment nearby, which also proves that you're gonna need to really, you know, say save up on equipments and learn not to freaking get bodied. Well, because I'm a smart person, I save on my equipments, and I can always, you know, use a cheat code such as this bad boy to kind of do all of this and like kind of save, but then it would be true as an evil friend. And on top of that, come on, man, like you need to have some sort of challenge in the game, genuinely. Therefore, I will be doing that, and for the most part, I've been pretty much doing alright. You know, I haven't died at all. So yeah. Only time I ever really went back in time was when I missed the first shot. I was like, I'm gonna try it again, and I missed. I didn't miss, but like, I think I missed, but like, it was kind of like a damn, you know, like a damn moment. That's kind of what. Hey, man, you are what you eat, gang. You are what you eat. In the meantime, we're gonna combine those bad boys, and that's gonna strengthen the effects of the green herb, which will make me generate health back even faster, bigger, and better. So that's why red herbs are very important. Continue on though. Yeah, so the story of Resident Evil 6 is a little wonky, but continuing on with the lore though, pretty much we need to know is, you feel me, Derek Simmons is kind of the responsible for the outbreak in USA with the C virus. And also directly responsible for the Andonia outbreak, which is an custom Eastern Europe country, Andonia outbreak that occurred 6 months ago in December of 2012, which in there starred the son of Albert Wesker, Jake Mueller, who doesn't know he's the son of Albert Wesker yet, and a longtime character from RE2 that we haven't seen since RE2, Sherry Birkin. So yeah, I forgot to mention, William and Annette Birkin had a daughter named Sherry who was about 9 to 12 years old during the events of Resident Evil 2. However, they both died during the events of Resident Evil 2 due to things related to biographical experiments, and some of it was also William's fault, to that too. But during the events, Claire would take massive care of Sherry, being like sort of a big sister and almost like a mother figure to Sherry, also protecting her from someone like Chief Irons, who was scumbag and confirmed to work with Umbrella, and I've been one of the key contributors to the STARS funding unit and all that jazz. Here we meet our character, the woman in red, the woman that will be around and want to be the antithesis of all of our shit. Ada Wong.
Sorry about that. When I saw the uniform, I thought you were another zombie.
Who are you?
Yeah.
Ada Wong.
And what are you doing here?
I'm looking for some guy named Ben. He's one of those reporter types, always looking for a scoop. I heard he was locked up in the cell block, only there's a wrecked car barring the entrance. I've been trying to find another way inside. If we work together, we can move this thing. Give me a hand here, will you?
I guess, bro. I guess. Well, yeah, Ada Wong is a very important character. I haven't really talked about her much. But yeah, Leon and Ada do meet Gordiva's Raccoon City. They later do become a love interest. But they're also one of the reasons as to why Annette Birkin dies. Not really. No, Annette Birkin dies to Leon in some aspects. But you know, yeah. The events, uh, a monstrous version of William infects Sherry with the G virus. She's eventually cured, but parts of the G virus still resides and thus sort of adapts and mutates. And now Sherry has powers, in essence. But while they do help in a lot of ways, it didn't mean that she had a life procedure for most of her life, second third of her life. She has been subjected to forced treatment and harsh environments and pretty much experiments by the U.S. government for years. Sucks ass and screw the government. But yeah, that's pretty much what essentially happens. She kind of just gets bodied. Not really, actually, but she just gets subjected to like a lab rat. Eventually, she's freed, is able to do whatever she wants, but she's forced to join the U.S. government and works with the BSAA on a certain division. There, she tracks down Jake Mueller, who's supposed to have the antibodies to stop the C virus. During this time, Jake Mueller, who is a mercenary for hire at this point, takes the virus only like a couple, minutes ago, and has not affected because he has the antibodies to the C virus. And again, it's Albert Wesker's fucking son. There, he meets Sherry Birkin, and she pretty much explained the gist of why Jake is important, and Jake would do it for $50 million in cash, non-negotiable, which they agree. They meet with Chris, who's there for his own reason, pretty much to contain the virus and not spread it anywhere past Andonia, specific part of Andonia, which goes pretty horribly wrong, because eventually it now spreads over to the US, but also to China. A majority of the game takes place in China in the summer of 2013, where majority of the cast, such as Ada Wong, Jake and Sherry, Leon, and a new character named Helena Harper, who is sort of important but not too important. But she's kind of like a new character in the series that will later join the U.S. government to fight against bioterrorism. Chris and a new character named Pierce Nivitz, who's part of the BSAA, who's been in the division for a long while. And it's sort of like Chris's second right-hand man, and was once anointed as the new pretty much Chris Redfield, but he kind of dies, so it happened. Helena is now at the end of their story, she now becomes an agent, and Leon kind of continues his own thing. So does Chris, and Jake finds his purpose, and Sherry finds continues working for the freaking government agency. I don't know, whatever. From there, we see a variety of different, bioweapons, such as a, bioweapon that's there to infect the entire world with the C virus. Carla, who's also still technically a bioweapon herself, so she kind of becomes some sort of clay monster that Ada fights. Simmons, who gets infected with the C virus and becomes like a freaking monster, and is bioweaponized. And so Leon and Helena, with their own supervision agendas too, take him down with some help of Ada from here and there. Chris takes down the bioweapon that's trying to affect the entire world, the C virus, and all that jazz. And Jake handles down a tyrant-like being known as the Usuvatak, something like that. Eventually, they do manage to beat it. And they use Jake Mueller's C viruses to, antibodies to produce a vaccine for the C virus. It's all cured. They keep Jake Mueller's relation to Albert Wesker top secreto because it could lead problems to the world. And everybody kind of goes separate ways. And then Death Island takes place 3 years after. She's returned to Jill Valentine, who was apparently, due to the residue T virus, can no longer age, which is why she looks like her counterpart from the 3 remake from 1998, even though she looks older. Last time we saw her in Resident Evil 5, but whatever. I suppose. I guess, bro. Um, and there we see the returning cast of previous major heavy hitters of the series: Leon, Chris, Jill, Rebecca, and Claire. Everybody's pretty there together to stop another virus outbreak, bioterrorism outbreak together. They're all affected with an equal virus that, is seen to set up to kind of stunt everyone's growth and aging process, but they're all managed to find a cure, whatever, whatnot, and they all managed to go to separate ways, chillaxing, and, hooba dooba, which Resident Evil Death Island takes place 3 years after Resident Evil 6 in 2015. So this was technically the last time we ever see Leon, until obviously Requiem, which comes out tomorrow, which again, I'm hoping my father can pre-order the game either today or buy the game tomorrow. I can live stream for you guys.
Ada, wait!
That's the gist of the lore and the story you need to kind of catch yourself up on. There's a lot more I'm missing, a lot more characters that are important and stuff like that. And I am pretty downplaying a lot of, the story. But again, most of it is off of the basic knowledge I know, and I need more research done to give a proper lore video. And then again, there are other lore videos out there you can watch anyway, so you don't really need me. I'm just here to kind of give a general basis of such. So you guys are kind of prepared for the lore and story, what's going to be occurring in Resident Evil Requiem, so that we're not entirely lost and not entirely like, what the frick's happening? You know what I mean? Yeah. Gonna grab this. Now these blue herbs on their own, I think you can eat these bad boys on your own, but they don't really like kill you. They more like get rid of poison. But they can be mixed with red and green herbs and green herbs and all that jazz. Which is why you even need them is because, again, to take care of poison, but they can also be added to also enhance the effects of the red and blue herb equally.
Let me guess. You must be Ben, right? Get up.
Get up. Now.
What do you want? I'm trying to sleep here.
Hooba dooba.
Is this the guy?
Ben, you told the city officials that you knew something about what's been going on, didn't you? What did you tell them?
And who the heck are you?
I'm trying to find my boyfriend. His name's John. He was working for a branch office of Umbrella, based in Chicago, but he suddenly disappeared 6 months ago. I heard a rumor that he's here in the city.
I don't know anything. And even if I did, why would I want to tell you?
Okay, I say we leave him in there. Does anyone know where they put the key to this cell?
I have it right here, officer. But I'm not about to leave this cell. Those zombies aren't the only things crawling around out there.
What was that?
The one I've been mentioning, that was Steve component R2.
Get out of here before you lead it right to me.
Hey, I'm not going anywhere. I'm the only cop left alive in this building.
What?
Look, if you want to live, then you're gonna have to leave with me.
But do you even know how to get out of the city? There's a kennel in the back of the building. Inside the kennel is a manhole. Go through and it'll lead you to the sewer entrance, but it won't be easy.
I bet it won't.
All right, I'm going.
I'm gonna need the crowbar. If I even have enough space for it. I do. And I still gotta get rid of these two bad boys. So I'm gonna have to make my way back up to the area where the film is at. But through this area is where we're going to go in order to get to the sewer section, but won't be going here just yet. Mainly for the fact that I gotta, you feel me, like, get rid of these freaking things, bro. Get rid of these freaking things, gang. Actually, well, yeah, yeah. I'll put the film in there too. Might as well, because I know I'm not gonna be up there for a hot minute. So I'm just do that. Anyways, what are some of y'all expectations and hopes for Resident Evil Requiem whenever you guys see or be able to play it tomorrow? Because I'm genuinely expecting, hopefully, a mercenaries one, maybe when the call-out function, due to just the amount of action there is in the Leon section. Excuse me, he's also curious to see what's going on with Leon Scott Kennedy, because, you know, he's definitely having a role in this. I also want to see the significance of Grace Africa, because it seems something is definitely important with her. I feel there's a lot more that laying on with Grace than what meets the eye, especially when you see the 4 trailer. I could be stretching, but I don't know, gang. There's something more with Grace than Leslie in the eye. I would genuinely just say that much. And then I'm also curious to see if we're gonna have a similar like tag system with Leon and Grace, low key, because they do interact. We know that they're gonna interact, obviously, but they do interact with each other a lot. But I'm curious to see if there'll be a moment where they work together, where you kind of like switch between two, like, you know, it's kind of like a moment where they kind of like have a mandatory switch, but they're both together doing something together. That'd be kind of cool. Genuinely be kind of cool, okay. I'm going the wrong way. Cars in the 90s. Gotta love the cars in the 90s. Stay with me. I wanna key. My goon. Yeah, who cares? I'm out of bullets. More bullets! More bullets! Thank God. That was spooky, little scary. Gang. Now if y'all have arachnophobia, L plus ratio gang. Cause down here, well, you know, we're gonna meet. Before I go down there, because I don't have any like strong bullets or anything, I'm genuinely just gonna like go up. Genuinely, and like, you feel me, just get some guns. Because I can't really truly progress any further. Well, I could still do it, but those enemies are gonna give me so much of a hard time, and I just don't feel like dealing with them with just a pistol gang. I just want to kind of get it over with. So, I'm gonna go all the way backtracking back, backtracks back, right? To pat, so that with that, that's that. On bat, and yeah. I will say though, I genuinely think that like there will be like I actually low-key think that like the game may end off with Leon. I don't know why, but it feels to me like we're gonna get a large portion of Grace, but the game may end off with Leon, especially since it's been confirmed going back to RC. So it'll low-key be pretty interesting to see. You feel me? And like, you know, how that's incorporated. And I think we're definitely gonna go back to. I'm gonna finish the game up with Leon and him going back to RC and like, who knows, finding something out there that will not only end the game obviously, but also lead to like some big lore reveal plot point that will be explored later on in the series that would definitely change up the series for the years to come, which I mean, it's pretty much a given in, you know, the Ari franchise, right? So I usually like to keep my characters in like caution for the most part, especially if there's like not a lot of danger, because saves up on resources, and that way I genuinely don't have to, you know, fuck over shit and whatnot, what have. Going through here. Yeah. It's honestly just crazy to see how we've come so far with Resident Evil 4 for 30 years, and now, you know, to be fair, right? Like, then I gotta like stress this. The game that really got me truly invested in Resident Evil long term wise for the foreseeable future was this game I'm playing right now. Specifically this version 2, Resident Evil 2, the original. The moment I played this game fully on, full end, bro, there was no turning back. There was genuinely no turning back, gang. Like, I could not get enough of Resident Evil. And that's really how I understood the lore, the story, some of those fun facts, and all that jazz. Yes, guys. Again, if you have arachnophobia, please kick off, cause we don't tolerate pussies. And I think I got it, but I didn't get it. Alright, 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 alright. Gonna just continue on. Alright. So in here, that's gonna be important. Here is gonna be important too, but you know. Now this is an important area, specifically because of the fact that, you know, hey gang. Now we'll be saving actually here. I'm not saving so I can go back to this section specifically because, again, I'm not genuinely really going to be trying to use that. I'm only saving in case, you know, for some reason my game lag, because sometimes, you know, these kind of games do tend to lag, or like rather crash, unfortunately. And, you know, making all this progress and then I just, you know, just die genuinely. It would just kind of be like we're off and then just kind of like dumb. Especially when you consider the fact that, like, hey, gang, you know, I'm in the middle of a live stream, right? And how my live stream is set up, it's not like, you know, the other guy's live stream where, you know, speaks cinema. Like I do need to be in a game consistently in order for the live stream to still stay up. Otherwise, it's gonna just end. Genuinely, that's how it works. And I don't have like, you know, a god or anything, so like outside streaming, having, you know, a camera or screen recorder sorts like that for real. And even then, I would need a computer mostly for that. But I'm gonna get a PC soon, so it's not gonna be too bad. But you know, something to let y'all know about. Some, you know. So yeah, it's kind of want to clarify why I'm doing that. It's not because I want you to game. It's because, you know, just in case some BS happens, game can. You know, I don't like BS, so. Alright, I have 3. One, the last one will be on the 4th floor, or that, you know, attic area was in the 3rd floor. Cutscene.
Ada? I don't think I've introduced myself yet. My name's Leon. I'm with the RPD.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
It's a dead end.
You think we can get upstairs through this shaft? Give me a boost. I'll go and check.
Now you play as Ada Wong for sections similar in the remake. Well, you know, this also builds off the original, right? Shut the frick. Thank God, bro. Now, if you go down here, we can grab these shotgun shells, baby. And she doesn't really get a shotgun. Like, Ada Wong is just Ada Wong here. She's just kind of chillaxing, genuinely. But what she does do, but you know, she's supposed to like pick. If you don't pick that up, she doesn't give Leon anything, just like a specific item that's always going to be mandatory. But if you do pick it up, she does throw the shotgun shell too that you can pick up, which is really important, and you know, all that jazz for Leon Scott Conator. So yeah. Now here there isn't water in it yet, so we actually can go down here. And again, the art pull does not exist in this game, but this is a puzzle that we gotta solve. So get on top of these boxes, go down here again, right? Feel me? Push this bad boy like a little bit. Go up here, right? And then you're gonna turn around. You're gonna push this bad boy in, right? Supersonic style. Now again, this is a PS1 game, so everything needs to be mostly tight and connected. So we gotta push this a little bit further back so it's both completely connected. And then Jin gotta just like us. Now QuickTime does not exist in this game yet. It only comes in R3, and even then it's a little bit. But yeah, just gonna us. Turn this bad boy on, which will fill up the water. Genuinely, then I'll fill that up to pretty much the top to where we can actually cross between platforms. And no, you cannot just do this and pretend like you can't get across this, because in this version it's the PS1. They didn't know how to do the proper swim mechanics, at least for these kind of games. And apparently in the world of Resident Evil, you can't swim in this game. So yeah, that's nice. We're gonna continue on further though. That's with that boy door up. Run. And because it's going to ensue once all this animation door thing's open and done.
Leon, can you hear me?
Ada, did you find anything?
Right here. Think fast. Here's one more. Hey, I can't reach the ventilation hole. I'm going to have to find another way around. I'll catch up with you later.
What? Ada, wait!
Now we finally have the final key that we truly need for the RPD section. Grab that shit, and then grab the shotgun shells. I'm gonna put this bad boy in here for now. 100% key. We're gonna keep everything for now. That's not what I need. What I do genuinely need though is an ink ribbon, because this is where I can now officially send my game. Then alright, save. Whatever. Alright, gang. So that's pretty much it.